A lot of us are starting to get that anxiety of getting the kids ready to head back to school, changing up schedules, getting them prepared mentally for the return to school. And it can be very challenging as well for parents and for children with parents of children with ADHD. And joining us is consulting pediatrician Dr. Judy Van Stralen. Great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
And this is really kind of the time where there's so many changes going on for families that a lot of focus needs to be put on the child that has ADHD because they're going to be going through major transitions heading back.
The transition back to school is so much bigger for a child with ADHD, and it's really important to set your child up for success. And so for some parents, that means putting their children back on medication. If there was a medication holiday, we do recommend that medication is taken year-round, but for some parents, they decide to stop the medication for various reasons. And so getting back on medication and on the medication that the child was on, the brand name that they were on is important. And also setting them up for success in other ways. It's not all about medication, so just some tips to get right back into the swing, back into the routine.
It can be stressful enough, but especially too if they have been on a medication vacation that you like to refer to it. How do you then try to transition back in so that it's a smoother transition getting back and for the child to not have that anxiety knowing back comes the medication, back comes more of the regimented schedule?
Well, first of all, practicing in advance. Don't start at, the first day of school, but getting back into the routine a little bit slowly, setting the bedtime, getting the bedtime back to the regular time and getting up earlier, practicing that, maybe even practicing the morning routine and the walk to school or visiting the school in advance if possible, especially if it's a change in school as well, is important. In terms of medication, again, it's speaking to your doctor for different medications. There may be different regimes of that, of getting back onto medication, but it's important to go back onto what was successful before. And then other things, talking to the school, advocating at the school for your child. I always like to talk about positive parenting. We all respond to positive reinforcement much better than always having consequences. So I have a little rule of thumb, 5 positives for 1 consequence or negative. And for the child with ADHD, really just having, celebrating those small successes. So good job for, for listening this morning, good job for, brushing your teeth without being asked. Little things like that can just bring a smile to the child's face and set them up for a good day instead of the difficulty.
I think sometimes you often don't think about recognizing the small things, like that they actually did go brush their teeth and you didn't have to tell them 10 times to do that, but to recognize that positive reinforcement. And I guess to try to keep that number, I like that 5-to-1 ratio, because at the end of the day you probably realize you've said a lot more negative things
exactly.
than you probably have positive.
It's so easy to get into that rut of the negatives, really. So trying to keep the positives and trying to do that in sometimes in a more structured way as well. So visual schedules help children and help children with ADHD even more. So just having not only the auditory reminder, not only hearing it from mom or dad all the time, don't do this, that kind of thing, but having like a visual schedule, maybe a morning schedule where these are the 5 or 6 things that you have to do in the morning to get out the door in time. And having that written down, or pictograms if it's a younger child, can really help the child get back onto track.
Having a nice visual checklist as well.
Yeah.
This is something, especially with the ADHD, that you deal with constantly. You have a lot of parents coming in. At what point do you start to, especially during the school year, for a parent to say your services might be needed, or that they're starting to see that some things might not be right?
It really depends on functional impairment is what I always get back to. And what I mean by that is how the child is functioning in his or her daily lives. ADHD doesn't just affect a child, it affects every aspect of the child's life, and that includes all the interactions. So interactions with peers, interactions with parents, interactions with teachers. So if the child's not meeting with success, and there's lots of difficulty in all those daily activities, like I said, morning routine, after school homework, getting in trouble at school a lot, or not meeting their potential. It may not be getting in trouble, but not meeting their potential, not being able to get the grades or the successes that they should be able to get based on, on who they are, then it may be time to speak to their doctor.
Dr. Judy Van Stralen, great to have you here. I know we're heading into another busy school year as well, but great tips, especially for parents, as we're starting to get all of our kids ready for the back to school season.